has issued a tornado warning.
Can you hear me? So she's in here somewhere. We're almost out of this.
It can be gone just within seconds.
And it sounded like freight trains coming from every direction. I just said run.
Does it seem like this has been almost a year now?
No.
Kind of gets a little emotional sometimes.
The memories are very fresh.
People just showed up. People moving debris from my destroyed building. How do you repay that? How do you repay that kind of love?
It's been 1 year since the Mid-South witnessed history, a tornado outbreak taking the lives of 25 people and changing the lives of countless others. 7 tornadoes touched down in the dead of night, catching so many asleep in their beds, carving destruction right through the heart of Middle Tennessee. In some places, like here in North Nashville, things haven't changed a whole lot since March 3rd, 2020. Of course, recovery efforts slowed by the pandemic. Fox 17 News' Alex Apple shows us that is the case in neighborhoods in Putnam County, the site of an EF4 tornado.
It was like a war zone. It was, we've seen everything. People laying that were already gone.
Sometimes there are no words, no clever quotes to neatly sum up what's happened. Such was the case on Hensley Drive and North McBroom Chapel Road.
My husband pulled people out the night of. That house right behind us, he pulled 2 people out of it. The next house down helped an elderly couple out of it.
9 people died here. A whole neighborhood was wiped away.
Well, and this whole street was leveled.
1 year later, the rubble is gone. Driveways, relics of what was, lead to nowhere.
I knew it was bad, but just couldn't dream that it was this bad. Never imagined that it was this bad.
Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter spent 25 years in emergency management, training he's leaning on every day.
It's as much destruction and damage as we had. It still was a moment that I'll never forget, the way the community came together, and it makes me proud to know that I live here.
On Hensley Drive, some homes are rebuilt, others not even started. There aren't enough contractors to do all the work.
We tried to be as lenient as we could with the homeowners that lost their homes with the permitting process.
450 homes were damaged or destroyed, meaning for hours after the storm, first responders could hardly even reach those in need.
We have a neighbor that's down here, Daryl Jennings. He's one of our county firemen. They kind of set up a first aid at his house.
The truth is, Daryl Jennings, his wife Amy, and their children are lucky to be alive.
We were right here in the hallway on the floor.
The left side of their home was damaged. Moved their home a few feet over, it could have totally collapsed. They walked outside to find their neighbors and their homes simply gone.
Our heart is wanting them back.
Yeah, the community isn't going to be healed until everyone is okay.
It's back, yeah.
And that's going to be the closure for us when all of the neighbors who are coming back are built and moved back in.
Work is underway on the Jennings home. In their rebuilt garage, Daryl holds evidence of the strength of the storm that spared them. But in that mangled street sign, they found a lesson.
We appreciate that, but we appreciate life and everything in it so much more. And I know every one of our neighbors would say the same thing.
Putnam County's story is now one of resilience, rebirth, and courage found in the most unlikely places. On Hensley Drive, I'm Alex Apple, Fox 17 News.
Right there's where we was at.
Not natural.
On this side of the bed right there, asleep. And then when the horns went off, well, a few minutes later they quit. And I thought, well, it's over, it's okay. And man, it all started falling apart. And all I could do was grab my wife. I grabbed my wife, rolled over, grabbed the side of the mattress, and I felt like it was a vacuum pulling us out of the house. And all at once, everything just fell in.
A moment that captured so many hearts. Winston, we met him at his lowest point right after he'd lost everything, his home where he'd lived for decades in East Nashville. Yet he found the strength and hope in the fact that he didn't lose the one thing most important to him, and that's his wife. Fox 17 News' Kathleen Jacob takes us to East Nashville 1 year later.
What I've heard from so many people who were impacted by this tornado is that it was wonderful to see the community come together so quickly to lift each other up. But then the pandemic hit and it was on to the next crisis, never really giving the time to grieve over this one. March 3rd started with shock, fear, and heartbreak.
And all I could do was grab my wife.
But from devastation came love, a community banding together.
Oh, God, it's so good to see you.
To lift each other up. But then,
the Metropolitan Public Health Department is issuing order number 3, a safer at home order.
a new crisis took the forefront, barely leaving time to breathe in between tragedies.
So right there where that little garage is that Susan's?
No, Susan's is gone too.
Laura Dramas and Casey McGee walk down Holly Street still in awe at what's left to be done.
These are like 100-year-old houses. They're not those tall, skinny new builds that just go up really quick. Like they've been here for so long. It's just so sad to see them.
And Laura's was one of those homes, 100 years old, ripped apart March 3rd while she crouched in her bathroom with her dog.
The force of it, and just such a, I think the next day seeing the damage overall, because I think a part of me that night thought that it had just kind of hit our little section, and I just really didn't realize the extent of what it had done to the neighborhood.
Her best friend Casey got there as soon as possible, worried for her friend and the entire community.
It was very traumatic just seeing this neighborhood.
The next week became a blur. Not only did they have to cope with Laura losing her home, but they felt the pull from the community to help those in even worse shape.
Which way are we going? Careful.
There you go. You're very welcome.
If I could go around and find every one of them, I could hug them from daylight to dark.
And after a week of adrenaline, before everything really sank in, COVID-19 hit Nashville.
The fear and the panic, especially those first few weeks of the lockdowns, just really compounded the trauma that I know she experienced. And I don't want to put words in her mouth either, but she could speak more to that, I think, too.
No, I agree. I think as well, for so many of us were displaced, and then to be told to stay at home.
The focus shifted so quickly because it had to. But like the holes where these homes used to be, it left an emptiness in so many people.
I brought my parents when they visited over the summer. We drove down and I just burst into tears. They weren't surprised because I cry all the time, but I was actually kind of caught off guard with how much emotion I felt just because it took me back to that time.
A time that so many are reliving day after day without closure. It's why Casey and Laura went to acknowledge what happened, planning a candlelit walk from Fanny's and 5 Points down Holly Street March 3rd.
Something to just bring some beauty back and just have everybody feel closure or
acknowledge what happened.
Because the only way to heal is to acknowledge the horror of what happened and honor the community that's still putting broken pieces back together. If you'd like a place to go where you can grieve and reflect on Wednesday, we have a list on our website, fox17.com. And if you have a place that you'd like to let us know about, please feel free to reach out to us. In East Nashville, Kathleen Jacob, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
It's a phrase tossed around a lot, the perfect storm. When it comes to the tornado outbreak on March 3rd, 2020, that's exactly what this was. Fox 17 News Code Red Chief Meteorologist explains this relentless, deadly, yet perfect storm. Tennessee is no stranger to overnight severe weather. In fact, the volunteer state leads the nation in nocturnal tornadoes. And the March 2nd, 3rd outbreak was no different, I'm afraid, as these tornadoes raced across 175 miles of the mid-state in just 3 hours' time. The worst outbreak that Middle Tennessee has seen since the 2000 Super Tuesday outbreak. Beginning late March 2nd and into early March 3rd, 7 tornadoes ripped across Middle Tennessee, including a deadly EF4 tornado just outside of Cookeville. Also costly was the Tri-County tornado. 5 people died here with a tornado on the ground for more than 60 miles in length. The longest path in Middle Tennessee since record keeping began back in 1950. Also the first tornado in downtown Nashville since 2000. So why is it these storms were so destructive and deadly? A lot of it has to do with the structure of the storms that night, supercell storms. They often produce the most intense tornadoes and don't occur here in Tennessee very often. Even more rare, the fact that all 7 of these tornadoes came from one supercell. What a difference one single minute can make. The absolute devastation caused in 60 seconds. And the show of strength from those who survived the storm.
This mural was going to hopefully remind them that, that we are Nashville and we are Nashville strong.
A single mural becomes a rally cry for an entire city. The message that remains strong even 1 year later.
Come on, hurry up.
Less than a minute, 1 minute. That is all it took to change the lives of countless of our neighbors in Wilson County. In fact, once the dust all settled, the National Weather Service determined that a single tornado stayed on the ground for 60 straight miles, tearing through so many communities. Fox 17 News' Dennis Ferrier taking us to Wilson County to look at those lives changed forever.
The damage was terrifying. The stories, unforgettable.
The family was hunkered down in the hallway, and I knew the trailer wasn't gonna withstand that, and I just said run.
Jason Cook chased by a tornado in a flying FedEx truck. His daughter crumpled with multiple broken bones when he laid across her and probably saved her life.
I just laid on top of her and just dug my fingernails and my hands down in the mud as tight as I could to hold on.
That's what it was like, house by house, a story of close calls and narrow escapes. You survived this.
Yeah, thanks to this guy. Sorry.
It's okay.
He got me into the basement.
Those survival stories ended on Catalpa Drive in Mount Juliet, where Jimmy and Donna Eaton died in their bed, instantly crushed by a tree. It appeared they never even woke up, a great comfort to the family.
God just took them home and they woke up in his presence.
When we went back a year later, what struck us first was how much was gone. The stories were just echoes, the house's lots, or just piles of dirt. Some things look exactly like they did the morning of the tornado, but not completely. There are the sounds of construction and beautiful brand new homes. Neighborhoods coming back.
When you came in, everything was flattened, and when you come in now, it's like we're in a new subdivision. Like this is a new build, and I guess it really is now that everybody's rebuilding their homes.
County Mayor Randall Hutto has led the rebuild, which included his own home. The mayor had to leave a damaged home and his own family to lead a county out of chaos.
It's one thing to stand in front of a camera and talk about a tornado when it affected everybody but you. When it affected you as well, then the emotion is there, the energy is there, the fire is there, and you can understand what you're talking about to people.
The county's still fighting with insurance companies over the 2 schools that were badly damaged and remain closed. They will at least be closed another year, even if they settle tomorrow. Hutto also discovered that while FEMA is generous, people were a little surprised at the bottom line.
And they give you 75 cents on the dollar, but you got to justify that. You got to make sure that's right. They only pay for certain things. And their job is to make people whole, not come in and put people back to brand new. And so that communication tool was a little tough to get to people. They thought, hey, look, FEMA's just going to take care of me. Not true.
Nevertheless, Wilson County discovered, while it might be the second fastest growing county in Tennessee, it still has some small town character. People rallied, and it didn't make an impression. It left a mark.
The police department, I can't say enough. We have an outstanding police department here, and they've been great.
But a lot of times we are focused, straight on. We got blinders on. How can we get to the next goal? When this happened, people took those blinders off and said, how can I help my neighbor?
Remember, this was a county that had so many volunteers they had trouble coordinating them. Busloads of people wanting to help.
But I've experienced the love that people have for one another in this county, and that was, as I said, the biggest blessing that came out of this disaster.
Chilling. From dozens of rescues to confusion and terror, Fox 17 News reliving the most talked about moments for the deadly tornado outbreak.
This is just my businesses, right? My neighbors lost their houses. My neighbors' homes were destroyed and they're having to rebuild them and lost their memories, right?
Neighbors helping neighbors, not a cliche in Nashville. The community's now stronger together.
911, what's your emergency?
3 people trapped?
Yes.
That's She's in here somewhere. Stay with me. We're almost out of this. Okay? I got you, hon. I got you. Everybody ready? Okay, we're coming down with her.
Something we've heard time and time again in the weeks and months since that deadly tornado outbreak is how neighbors came together and helped neighbors. It's not just a cliche here, it's who we are. It's what we do. Fox 17 News' Kathleen Jacob takes us inside the volunteer spirit.
It may seem trivial to be covering the opening of a restaurant, but for so many in this community, it brings healing and that sense of normalcy, and that's what the people here need. For Matt Charette's 3 5 Points businesses, it's these people.
Everybody's either from here or drifters.
I love that.
We stuck together.
His staff that mean the most to him.
The only way I can explain it is like, you know, when your kids grow up and they leave the house and then they're out in the world and you're worried about them, and then they come home and they're under your roof and you know that they're safe.
And that's where they are, back home, after spending a year with other restaurants and businesses, while Matt worked nonstop to restore what was left of Boston Commons, Drifters, and Beyond the Edge.
This is just my businesses, right? My neighbors lost their houses. My neighbors' homes were destroyed and they're having to rebuild them and lost their memories, right? Memories blown away in the tornado.
At the same time, though, new memories were made, a community swooping in to lift each other up.
People just showed up, people moving debris from my destroyed building with their bare hands. They didn't have gloves, you know, or John and Sheila opening Cumberland Hardware at 3 o'clock in the morning because they knew their neighborhood was going to need their help. I mean, how do you repay that? How do you repay that kind of love that you receive from your community?
It's why he had this painted on the side of his building.
I just wanted to just repay the love or the hope that was shown to me.
And while there are nerves that come with reopening a restaurant that's not exactly as it was before, he felt it's the least he can do for the community who supported him through all of this.
Our mission here is to serve our community, and we want to give you matter service. You know, our community really matters to us, and it matters that we want to serve them. We want to serve them well.
Proving Nashville strong is about a community that lifts each other up throughout one of the toughest years many businesses have ever seen. He doesn't have an exact timeline for when his other 2 restaurants will open back up, but it will likely be Drifters first and then Beyond the Edge. And again, he says if it wasn't for you, those people behind him who supported him through all of this, he wouldn't be where he is today. In East Nashville, Kathleen Jacob, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
When it comes to tornado recovery, in some areas it is slower than others. When you look across Nashville, there are homes, for example, in North Nashville, untouched, while others in other parts of the city are well on the way to recovery. We take a tour with Nashville Mayor John Cooper for an inside look at this long road to recovery. Hard to believe here we are a year later. I mean, this year has been so packed.
Miracle.
Totally.
That only 2 people died. It's the worst number of all of this, that 2 died here in Davidson County.
What did we not get done at this 1-year mark because of the pandemic?
We haven't been completely rebuilt back. There were 500 businesses deeply distressed. There were 1,500 property owners. They are not all back yet. That's what we didn't get done. And businesses have changed, people have closed, it's just been too much. But ultimately, it's the private property and their insurance, which is America, is how stuff gets repaired. And I'm not aware of insurance companies being slow in the response in any part of Nashville. Now, getting booked for jobs is just the problem of that we have a busy economy, and even in COVID, our construction activity went up. And I want to continue people to be in touch with me, to be in touch with my office. There have been millions of dollars given out in aid, grants, and assistance both for the tornado and for COVID, not enough.
Watching history unfold, the unforgettable moments from the deadly tornado outbreak.
This Fox 17 newscast is
So many stories from the deadly tornado outbreak of March 3rd. We can't possibly bring you every single one of them. So we leave you tonight with some of the most compelling and memorable moments from that historic day.
The National Weather Service,
we heard the alarm first,
has issued a tornado warning.
And then we heard big, huge roar.
Can you hear me?
I've never ever seen anything like this.
I just want to get to my family, and my husband and my son are in there, but I mean they're okay, they're good. So I just don't know. I just want to make sure and I want to hug them because I'm glad they're okay.
But I didn't even think. I just pushed her on the floor, dived on top of her, pulled a mattress over top of us, and just started praying.
So she's in here somewhere. We're almost out of this.
And I basically jumped out of my bed, and just as I jumped out of the bed, the last thing I remember was both my windows simultaneously, basically exploding.
It is a community. It is a community. We're resilient, and we're gonna. So many people who even don't even live in North Nashville who've come, and they're just helping, and we're not just resilient, but we're appreciative.
Give your loved ones a hug and thank that first responder in your neighborhood.
Continue on in faith, continue in hope, and we're going to make it through this.
This mural is going to hopefully remind them that that we are Nashville and we are Nashville strong. And I just want people I hope that people will be inspired by it, and when they feel like giving up, they'll see this mural and it'll just help them be strong. And if they can't be strong, maybe they'll find someone who can be strong for them.